All right, we are live. Today is Thursday, December 17th, and this is our weekly development check-in meeting. Before we move on with the agenda, I'd like to start with introductions. I'll go first. My name is Jen Lampton. I am joining from Oakland, California, where it is cold and there's a lot of beeping outside, so I apologize in advance for the construction noises. But let's turn it over to Greg.
Hi, I'm Greg. I'm joining from Greece, usually in Australia though. I'm interested in anything related to Backdrop and here to help and progress things for 1.18.0. And Phil?
Hi, I'm Phil Ward, out of Wichita, Kansas. I don't have anything in particular that I don't think I need to discuss. I think one of the items that I kind of advocated for might have been taken care of already. But anyway, just kind of here for some feedback and see where I can help. Let's go to Tim.
Hi, this is Tim Erickson from Deerwood, Minnesota. And yeah, I am here to talk about everything. Laren.
Laren, living in Memphis, Tennessee, and here to listen in on everything, but here to talk about primarily the search field in the image library, the filter, and hopefully we can figure something out for that. Joseph, you gone yet?
Nope. Hi, I'm Joseph from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm working on, I don't know, a bunch of things like hashtags. So, okay. Phil, did you go?
Oh, you went in.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll go next.
There you go.
Hey, I'm Nate Lanton from Oakland, California. And so yeah, we're closing in on 118 now. So I'm excited to go over the issues that we're getting close to. I think, is Justin the only one left? Justin? If you want to give it an intro. Maybe he's not on camera. Gregory, have you gone? You
Yes.
have. Okay. I think that's everybody then if Justin is just listening. Okay. Jen, let's go back to you and get the Contrib updates.
Sure. So since our last meeting, there's been 3 new contributed modules. Front page multilingual, which will help translate your front page if your site is in more than one language. Schema and preset API. I would imagine schema is a port of the Drupal schema module. I haven't looked at this. And preset API is for configuration presets. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I just wanted to thank all the people who have been working on contributed projects, not only those who are creating new releases, but there's also been a lot of activity on previous modules recently too, so that's great. Tim, do you have some announcements?
I assume we're talking about sprints right now. We did a sprint last Saturday. I think we had about 4, 5, or 6 people participate. Focused on stuff for the Backdrop 1.18 release. Now I've realized that when I say 1.18, I'm also including the 1.17 bug fix release that goes into that. So we're going to do another sprint. We have another one scheduled. Wait, what's going on with my map here? For January 2nd. Excuse me. So last Sunday we did one, and now we're going to do another one on January 2nd, right before code or feature freeze for 1.18. We did also do a blog post where we are just giving people a chance to list the issues that they're really hoping to get into the next set of releases. And we've gotten a number of people to submit issues, therefore it's on the blog. I'll post the link in Zulip again, but if you go to backdrop.org and go to the news section, you'll find the blog post about help wanted for 1.18. I think that's it. Does anybody else want to comment on how that went last Saturday and if there's anything we need to do next time? Any ideas on how we can better promote these or make them work better?
And you want to say have fun?
No.
Do it
Well,
again.
I'll just say it just really helped me to focus on an issue for a day. And I think I got my issue that I've been working on for the last few months, RTBC, largely because of the sprint and the ability to just sort of focus on it for a few hours on a day. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I got a number of same sort of thing, Tim. A good opportunity to focus and pay attention to the things that we're worried about or focused on for 118. I had a really good day of reviewing things and getting things in. We got the WebP image format merged in that day. That was very exciting. So yeah, it was very productive.
I have some time over the weekends, and I know that the previous sprint was last week, and then the next officially planned one is for the weekend after the coming one. But I plan to also sprint maybe by myself. Or anyone that has some time and energy, feel free to join.
I just like to raise the point that I think if anybody else wants to commit, Gregory, to a 2 hour, 3 hour block of time, and you're willing to like open up the Zoom room, we can add it to the schedule. I just don't want to add too many unless we really have somebody committed to be there. So.
Yeah, I'll be there. So I'm not sure if anyone else has time.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Tim. And thanks for putting together the code sprint, of course, and the next one that's coming up as well. So we'll talk about those at the end of the meeting. All right, let's do the project update. I'm going to give a quick update on 117.5 and focus most of the time on 118 today. 117.5 is the current bug fix release that we're working on. It'll be the next bug fix version that comes out. At this point, it's not exactly clear when that will be. It doesn't have a whole lot of fixes in it currently, and it might wait until the release of 118 and come out in parallel. The items that we've got in 117, did somebody interject something there?
Yeah, there's 7 issues that are currently on TBC.
Yeah, I was going to note that actually. There are 7 issues that are RTBC in the queue right now. That's awesome. Thanks for the reviewing and the marking of those things to get them in. None of them, oh wait, one of them is one of the ones that we've been talking about regularly, and that is the field set CSS, fixing some issues with its display when it's a collapsible field set in the 7 theme. So that issue 4766 has been marked RTBC. Thanks so much for doing that work. Really important issue that we should get sorted out is the Civi CRM views integration is broken, issue 4745. This is an issue related to the MySQL 8 updates. There is a patch there that has been working, and it currently needs review. I think I'm a little bit conflicted as to what to do there right now, that we have the choice to use the patch or the pull request that's in there that a couple of users have verified that it works, or we could cross-port a different approach to MySQL 8 functionality from Drupal 7. So we could basically kind of iterate on the approach that we have and use that, or we could switch to the approach that Drupal 7 used. So 2 different approaches there to fix that problem.
Yeah, I would like to add that if you filter the list by just PR works for me with there's 11 issues. So some of them include those, sorry, there's 11. So some of these include the 7 issues that we just mentioned that are RTBC, but there's others that just waiting for code review and could get in. So at least another 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, there's a huge number of issues that are almost always in the needs review list. Let's see, there's 14 items that are both marked 117.5 and marked needs review. So that's a huge chunk of work that is just pending additional eyeballs. Yeah, the bug fix list, or the milestone tag for 117.5 is generally kind of the high priority bug, like the way that we prioritize like what's something that needs to be fixed in the near future. And overall in 117.5, there's 64 open issues. So there's the 7 RTBC ones, the 14 needs review ones. So yeah, there's a good chunk of code there that could be moved forward with, you know, a relatively little amount of effort. Okay, let's see. I removed most of the issues from the 117.5 list because there hasn't been a lot of progress on a lot of these items. The one that I left in here, also probably I should take out. Remove the block title for the search box issued 3476 has been sitting there for, you know, several months without a whole lot of updates. So I'm not gonna go over that again, but its current status is that it needs work. Do you guys have anything you guys would like to bring up specifically for 117 that should be mentioned here? Okay. All right, well, let's talk about 118 then. 118, we're coming right up on feature freeze. Feature freeze is usually on the first of the month before the holiday. We've yet to officially establish this, but we're pretty sure that feature freeze will actually be January 4th. That's the first weekday after the holiday. So January 1st is actually New Year's, well, it's New Year's Day, it's on a Friday, and it's a holiday. So we'll roll over code freeze until Monday, January 4th. So I'm going to put that in here. So 118 issues. We have a new issue that was brought up, I think 2 weeks ago, that HerbDuel wanted to introduce a new option for config synchronization. The issue number is 4447. Provide an option to skip deleting the config staging files after a config sync. HerbDuel is the advocate for this issue. It currently needs review. We had some back and forth discussion about whether or not there should be a UI for this option, how it should be set, where it should be documented. But I think we're closing in on agreements on all of those questions. So 4447 currently needs review. It's a work and pull request that adds that functionality. It's useful for people that are maintaining their config files in version control. That right now, when you run a config sync, it empties out the staging directory to be helpful for you, so that further config changes don't show up on the synchronization page as things that are about to be imported. But for people that are managing things in version control, or that are on web servers that have a read-only web directory, it could either throw an error because it can't delete the files, or it causes a problem that those files that are managed in Git have now been deleted out of their physical location. So the Git history then has issues that need to be resolved when you manage your files. So that option would make it so that you can sidestep those particular issues. But for normal users, the idea right now is that we will leave things as is out of the box, and that would just be an advanced option to prevent the staging directory from being wiped out. Do you have anything you wanted to add, Jen?
No,
Okay.
I was just going to say thank you to HerbDuel for all of his work on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next up is exposing the file name filter for the media dialog issue 3293. Lauren is the advocate for that, and thank you for joining today, Lauren. Could you give us an update on that issue?
Yeah, I think some kind of power equipment just started up outside, so hopefully it's not overpowering me. But so the basic issue is we want to get a filter into the image library so that you can search on file name, and especially for sites that have a whole bunch of images, to be able to, you know, filter it down to a small subset and not have to go page and try to look through them all. So you can add an exposed filter really easily in views, but the issue is that it seems to work fairly well when you're doing it in a file field, but when you're doing it in the CK editor modal, then it kind of explodes when you try to search, when you try to use that filter. So as near as I can tell, it's because the modal, the insert image form pops up in the modal, and then the view inserts a second form inside that form. So you have nested forms. And I think that there's maybe a filter of some kind that strips out the exposed form. So it ends up, when you submit that, it ends up submitting to the insert image form. I think that's maybe what's happening. We have some movement in the last week or two from Almuch. Not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but he discovered this sort of magical way of making it work, which is inserting with JavaScript a click on the pager. And I think maybe that refreshes the form somehow. And then when you use the filter, it works. So it feels a little clunky and hacky and magical, but it works. So I've kind of pieced together a PR with his suggestions that he's pasted into the into that issue queue, and so there's a sandbox people can play with. And I think the issue of a brand new site or a site with very few images, I think he's got it now hiding the filter, so that because it doesn't work if you can't click on the pager. So he hides the filter if there's only one page. But it is all kind of, JavaScript, sleight of hand and whatnot.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know about that idea to like hide the filter if there's only one page. Like, seems like that's a little bit magic-y, especially if that's not configurable and it's not a normal views option. We don't do that sort of thing anywhere else. Like if there's only 10 nodes, we don't hide the search box from the content listing form, Yeah, I think a lot of these things that start to get into the subjective territory, and I saw that question about exposing the number of items per page to make it so that maybe you could choose, okay, I'm searching for this file name, but now I also want to show 50 items per page right next to the search box. I think that those are the sorts of things that we should probably delegate to, like, you can go and customize the view if you want that functionality. The out-of-box functionality should be the clearly obvious functionality, which is the file name search. And then for people that want variations in the way that their media search functionality works, well, that's why we have the view that you can go and configure. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. But that's awesome that Elmuch or Elmuche has been doing that work. The implementation is a little bit questionable. I think I'm going to have to take a little while and look at that and see what kind of adjustments need to be made there. Long term, I also think that the way that we deal with dialogues, right now it's an efficient mechanism where we're loading in a part of a page into another part of a page, and there's no it's all inline. And I think that a long-term solution that we might want to look at is using iframes for our modals, so that we don't have those problems of the stuff inside of the modal accidentally affecting the stuff outside of the modal, which is, I think, what you were describing, that the JavaScript is expecting to be loaded on a page independently, and it's starting to affect the stuff around it, which it wasn't built for. So, but I don't think that that's something that we need to do right now. We've had several releases where the media library has been using this same approach, which is the same basic approach as like a ctools dialog in 777. So I think we should definitely continue that for the time being, get this feature in. But then long term, we'll probably want to figure out like a more complete modal solution that makes things a little bit safer. Okay, thank you, Lauren. Really appreciate your update. Next up is adding a setting to the menu block for changing the breakpoint where the menu turns into a hamburger or not. That's issue 4663. BW Panda is the advocate for this one. Status on this is that it's been moving forward. We're checking right now to make sure that the option works on themes other than Basis, and there's been some review on checking it against Bartik, the other out-of-box core theme, as well as Tatsu, which is the Tim's version of Basis that is kind of the enhanced Contrib version of Basis. And we're working on validating and adding test coverage for the display of that option outside of Basis. So that's great. It looks like right now this issue currently needs work, but it's being very actively worked on and seems to be moving forward. And I think that we're sure that the approach is going to work now, which is great. It's all just working out the technical implementation. So that's great. Next up is changing the name of the full HTML text format to raw HTML, issue 4499. Tim, you're the advocate for this. Can you give us an update?
Yep. Well, it looks like we're RTBC. Again, I worked on that at the sprint and got feedback. We decided that we couldn't change the machine name because of possible problems with Contrib. So we changed the display name. I tried to document it nicely in code. So anywhere where it's talking about the display name, but then has or the raw HTML, but has a machine name of full HTML, I tried to put some documentation in the code. And we opened up a follow-up issue based on the conversation from 2 weeks ago, which basically says that if anybody is able to do the legwork and sort of confirm that maybe this is an overstated problem in Contrib, and or work with Contrib authors to get rid of the problem, that we could possibly change the machine name before Backdrop 2.0. Otherwise, this would be on the agenda for Backdrop 2.0, would be to get the machine name and the display name in line. So I think that's where it's at.
Can I ask a real quick question on that? What's being done, I guess, from the documentation side, like on the API area to kind of say, hey, if you're coming in, if you're new, you're used to full HTML, this is going to be changing to raw HTML in the future. I guess, what are we doing to prep people moving forward that, hey, the machine name is going to change at some point in the future. You need to keep that in mind.
Well, when it does change, it's not going to affect them at all for existing sites, but for new sites, if they had custom code that was doing it the wrong way, they would need to do it the right way.
Yeah, I'm trying to cover, if somebody
Sure.
comes over that's new and they, whether they port or they create a new module for a site, and they use the old machine name, which currently is the case, but it's like, how do we get in front of them to let them know this is going to change? So you need to keep an eye on this for future releases, because
they shouldn't be using the machine name anywhere is the answer. So it shouldn't affect them at all.
Right. One of the things we've decided is that there's no real reason in custom code in Contrib to be using machine names. So if you're doing that, you're doing it wrong anyways. There's never any guarantee. If you're using a machine name without checking if it exists, that's a problem, because you can delete it anyways. So I think we're debating whether or not there's any real need to prepare developers for this, because if there would be no reason to write code for a text filter that doesn't exist, and you need to check that first.
But we do have contribs out there that are coded specifically for those.
We do.
Only in their tests.
Right. So I guess
we decided there's a couple of cases where it goes beyond tests.
Right. I guess that's kind of my thing is how do we get moving forward? How do we get people to not write towards, hard coding that in their modules? So
Well, how is this different from anything else we might deprecate in 2.0?
Or how is it different from anything else that's doing today? Like, how do you stop a coder from doing something wrong right now?
right,
That's what
true.
we're talking about. Like, you can't. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Okay.
They're consulting the API or existing code for how to do it. I mean, I do things wrong all the time.
I mean,
Okay. Just playing some devil's advocate, make sure
Sure.
that it's not going to be something that's going to be an issue down the road. So
one of the things to understand is that these text filters are just set. They're not part of the core API.
right.
They're set up in the install profile, right? So
Oh, that's right. Yep.
they don't exist in core. They get built during the install profile. So all we're doing is changing the defaults that are set up in the default profile.
Okay.
And the only reason, again, in Contrib shouldn't be referring to them, I think we've decided. The only reason we're worried about this is that some Contrib authors have referred to them.
Okay.
But that
Right.
was never a safe thing to do, because
Yeah,
any user could delete them at any time. They're not in core.
Yeah, I think anything that you could just delete through the UI, you should not assume that it's going to be there all the time.
I mean, it's a good question. We do want to think about these things, but I think we've kind of thought that through and just, yeah. There was some talk about whether a change record is this something that does call for a change record or not? We haven't done.
Changing the label doesn't.
Okay.
No, because it doesn't affect anything. Nothing will break, and yeah, it's just like a UX change. It's like changing the label of anything.
Right.
And
We did-
it's only for new installs. So
We did create this follow-up issue, which offers the possibility of somebody manually reaching out to those Contrib authors that have used this and seeing if we can't get it changed. So, but we're not promising to do that.
okay, let's move on to the next.
How many
Oh.
of those Contrib authors are in this meeting?
I don't know. We have a list of the modules, but not the authors.
Yeah, it's also kind of a question. How many of those tests are actually working? Like I have a
Right.
feeling that if we went through and be like, oh, we should update these tests, we'd find out that the tests actually haven't even been run or ported to Backdrop. So there's that also. That updating the tests might not be so trivial if the tests aren't actually even passing currently. Okay. Anyway, moving on. Next item is is Gregory's issue. Merge all of the various things, modules, core modules, themes, layouts, and core update pages onto a single page. Issues 2714. Could you give
Yep.
us an update, Gregory?
Yeah, so this is really close, like 95% done. I'll probably file a pull request in a couple of hours, if not less. So what's bothering me now, and I'm trying, there was a related to the issue I'm having issue. Bear with me, I'll find it. Anyway, my problem with this at the moment is that if you do not select anything to be updated, like the checkboxes are blank, you get an error. So I'm trying to get some JavaScript and states going on so that you get a prompt to first select something before you click it, then you get the error. But that's, me tweaking things to a point that, yeah. But it's mostly working, not mostly working, it's working as expected from what I saw on my local. And yeah, I'll work on it a little bit more and should be ready.
What is this, Gregory? Your local?
Right.
Right. That's great. So there isn't any pull request yet to review, right? It's
Nope.
Okay. It's all just local. Okay. Well, that's great. Yeah, the screenshots look good. You've been gathering some positive feedback in the issue queue as well, so that's great.
Yeah, the other thing is that now, and I'm sure it's going to come up, like we sort of like, I think we didn't decide, but compromised that they should go at their configuration system updates, and it makes sense. But now we have 2 pages that list, and also we link to them differently, like from different places. we have two places where updates are being listed. One allows you to action it, like do the updates, and the other one is just a report. It kind of feels superfluous, but that could be a follow-up. We can see that, like, if we could consolidate, or because I was looking at reports, available updates, and then settings. Should that go in the reports now, or a subsection of the updates? So should we move the settings thing? I'm not. Anyways, I'll add some bullet points on what I need feedback for once I file the pull request.
All right. Let's see. Next up is advanced caching, support for cache tags and the cache max age header, issue 4127. Joseph, can you give us an update?
Sure. So I've been working on integrating this into core. I think I've got most things done. However, I am a bit concerned about so basically the way it works and the way it works in Drupal 8 is that it's completely integrated and it's just assumed that the cache system works that way. In Drupal 7, it's added by a Contrib module, which provides sort of like a cache class that is a container around another cache class. And so I've been doing it the Drupal 8 way, which is completely integrating it. However, I think I've come to the conclusion that that's probably not a good idea because it will involve rewriting any Contrib cache modules to emulate the behavior. So yeah.
An idea, Joseph, for that. If you take a look at some other cases where we have some legacy code and then we want to wrap it in some newer code, hook block is a great example where hook block is super weird for like config form. Like it has a switch on it for like, is it the config form? Is it the display? Is it the save handler? And we switched blocks from being driven entirely by hook block to you can use hook block info to expose a block, but then point it at a class, and the class contains different methods for the form and for the saving and for the display and all of those things. And the class version basically has more capabilities than the hook-based version. But we have one class called legacy block that wraps around the old implementation. And we could do that sort of thing where the in-core cache handler could be switched to something that is updated and an object. And then we could provide a legacy handler that wraps around the old procedural based ones.
Okay. Well, they're
Just
currently all objects.
So I guess what I'm saying is that that could be fine. And we probably have a way of finding a way to make that backwards compatible.
Okay.
Also, I mean, we have this weird thing where it's like we can look at what's in Contrib, and right now, I think right now there's probably only one Contrib handler for cache backends, I bet, and it's memcache.
There are two, actually.
Oh, is there? What's the other one?
Redis.
Of course.
And that's it. And I think both of them have fewer than 5 sites using them.
Mm-hmm.
But
they're still there. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is that we have, so we're changing behavior of the cache system as a whole. However, it has to be accounted for in those modules, which essentially just grab data and return it to their parent. So it's like, I don't like the fact that changing business logic has to involve changing the thing that runs Redis, hget, all this key.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a look, I think, to give any more feedback because it's starting to get a little esoteric to discuss, I think.
Okay,
As does every issue that you work on, Joseph, which
Sorry.
we definitely appreciate. No, it's not you. It's the complexity of the systems. So, okay, great. Well, thanks for the update, Joseph. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we could just take the Drupal 7 one and throw it in there, and it would work. It's just the way it wouldn't be. It would be replacing or adding an additional cache handler instead of changing the way the current default works.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh, we should also mention issue 4509 one more time. WebP support. Indigo Zella was the advocate for that one. That issue has been merged. Very exciting. So now we have a new image format that is supported in core. And an issue that isn't marked for 118 yet, but Doc Wilmot has picked it back up again and is moving it forward, is the concept of relationships within layouts, so that you could start with something like a node and then form a relationship to a user, for example, and start pulling, or form a relationship to the node's author, and then you could start pulling fields off of the author to place them into the layout. The issue is 2134. Pull request is not quite ready for review yet, but it's there's some new activity there and user interface and screenshots and things like that. So that issue would be good to start collecting feedback on it as Doc Wilmot progresses there. And that does it for the 118 list. Do you guys have anything else that you guys would like to bring up for 118?
I'm just curious if Jen wants to try and push forward on the field visibility for 118, or if we want to try and kind of push that back for a later release.
I was going to ask.
Yeah, so this is an interesting problem where if you're creating a layout or a block and you want it to only show if you're on for example, a node where a field has a specific value, CTools used to provide access callback or access plugin that would check for that. And when we ported all of the CTools stuff to Backdrop, this was one of the things that got left out. There's a handful of visibility rules that just didn't make it in, like the user compare one and the taxonomy term vocabulary one. There's like a bunch of stuff. And this one, I think, and Doc Wilmot has a contrib module for, because it's fairly common, where some of the other ones don't exist at all, except for like core patches. But this one, I think, is one that even though maybe not 80% of current Backdrop sites have needed it, it's the kind of thing that if it were there, I think it would be used a lot, where people look in those visibility rules and they don't see very many options. And so they, find other ways to do things. And so I started porting the CTools plugin before I realized that Doc Wilmot had already written, was Doc Wilmot or Herb?
No, it was Doc.
It was Doc Wilmot.
Yep.
Had already written a contrib module for it. And so I think, like, if we take his implementation and put it into my core pull request, that could be pretty close to being ready. So I don't know, I'm using it on a site right now. I'm motivated to fix it right now. The site is going to launch or be done around January 6th. So the timing is perfect to make that get a push for 118. But I wanted to gauge other people's interest in it. I think I'm the one that added the milestone candidate label. So it's going to need agreement.
I personally like the idea of it being in core, considering everything else that has been pulled into Backdrop between CTools and panels. That was part, like you said, it was part of CTools. And I agree, probably 80% of the folks that are out there won't ever use it or don't need it for a site. When you do need it, it is, you've got to have it. I mean, it's just hands down, you've got to have that type of functionality. So I do like the idea of it being pulled in core. What Doc has, doing some testing, the only piece that I have found so far that does not work is the null empty values. And there is a patch out there that's been floating since CTools, good grief, like 112 or 110 that I've been following for about the last 5 or 6 years. And every single time CTools gets updated, I've got to go repatch that thing because it still has not been incorporated in core CTools. Just hasn't been patched yet. So that, I think the majority of the work is done. The only piece that's missing is like dealing with images or multi-value fields. And I feel like, guys, let's just get this in CTools. Let's create another patch over there for multi-value fields. So there's a few issues with the patch that's sitting out there to deal with the empty null value fields, but some of those can be taken care of outside of what's already there. It works for probably 90% of the use case, what we need it for. So I guess my question is, do we want to go ahead and continue to develop that in the contrib for now until we feel like it's working and then start to pull all of that into core? Or do you want to go ahead and take, like you said, take what he's got and pull it into core? Then we shut that contrib down. And I know Doc's not a fan of shutting that down. He thinks it needs to be in contrib.
Well, I think what might make more use as a contrib solution is one module that's a collection of all of the filters that are missing that were in CTools. But I think having an individual module for each one is going to maybe not be the best fit. I don't know if that was his plan, is to move all of the ones from CTools there. This one is just specifically for this field. But this one I feel like is, it sort of feels like an obvious omission when you're playing with the drop down.
Agree.
Like, why isn't there a field as value option in here? Where some of the other ones like user compare, I use that all the time when I'm building profile pages for people, and everyone's like, I don't understand how this works. And it's like, well, you have to have this use case where people are looking at the profile pages. And if nobody's looking at profile pages on your site, which is most backdrop sites, you don't need it. And so that's much harder to even explain what it does, where this one, it's like everybody has a field on something.
Yeah, so my main issue, besides the fact that I find the functionality, well, compared to the code change, useful, is that we claim that certain modules have been merged into core, and we are working on as part of the outreach initiative to get the upgrade status module going. And what are we going to be telling people that use CTools? Is it ready and in core,
That's a good
or
point.
part of it? So because we keep saying that, yeah, CTools is in core, we should, like, obvious omissions, as you said, Jen, like that should be there. That's my problem with being against, keeping it in contrib and being against having it in core. That's my main problem. Same with certain things that the date module used to do, and it's not in core.
Okay.
Anything else?
I was going to say, I feel like it's kind of, I think there's some good points in there. I hate to upset Doc because nobody wants to upset anybody, but I think how do we let him down easy that, hey, we're going to go ahead and get this moved over into core, even though you're not a real big fan of that.
I mean, I think we can just push forward on it and see what he thinks.
Okay.
I think going forward, if we're like, here it is, you might be like, okay.
There's also a lot of precedent for putting some functionality in core, but then leaving the remaining things. Like contrib is like an enhancer on the things that get into core, or sometimes even a replacement. So just if you were using the contrib module, having the contrib module in place like takes precedence over the core implementation of some things.
Are you recommending we have a core contrib CTools module that includes all the stuff that didn't make it into backdrop core?
Oh, no. I was saying for Doc Wilmot's conditional fields module. I thought that's what Phil was referring
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not conditional fields as in field API, as in layout access plugin. So it came from
Yeah.
CTools and was missing in core. So so that's kind of where I was going with like one contrib module that adds back all the missing functionality, where I think that would make sense, where it's like, okay, we did this with date, where we left date repeat in contrib, where it's like, this is obviously not going in core because it's not 80% use case, so here's a module for it. But I think in this case, we didn't do that. There wasn't ever the decision that was like, we're definitely not putting these things in core. I think it was like, let's just get a minimum viable product in, and we never returned to all the list of 100 features that CTools includes. And so as we're now using it, we're coming across them going, oh, here's the thing we forgot. And I think that if we wanted to make a concerted effort to be like, here's all the stuff that's in CTools that's not in Backdrop, and have that line and be like 80% use case goes in, other things stays in Contrib, that would make sense. But I don't want every missing feature from CTools to get its own Contrib module and be sort of piecemeal added as people run into problems. I feel like that's going to create a lot of frustration, where it's like, oh, I thought it was in core, here's a Contrib module. Oh, I thought this was in core, and here's a Contrib module. Where there isn't sort of the upfront, like, easy split like date and date repeat had.
Something else to think about with the field visibility is you kind of mentioned the UX. Right now with the contrib that Doc has out there, and he and I kind of discussed that, but it hasn't gone anywhere yet. Right now it literally vomits every single field in the entire system on you. And so we need to be able to come in and basically do some filtration that says, hey, we're looking at this node.
My version took that sort of limiting, where it asks you what entity, what bundle, and only shows you the fields available for those. So I think that if we take all of the work that he's done in terms of like, the access checking, which is really the harder part, and just put it inside my like selecting the plugin thing, we can get both of those.
Good. So yes or no to adding it to 118? I guess you pretty well added it already as a milestone. So I guess it's official, right?
Just a quick note, Doc Wilmont is listening in on the conversation and posted in Zulip that he's happy with whatever decision gets made, and he won't be too upset.
Good deal.
All right. Well, we can of course push forward for it, but just marking it doesn't necessarily mean it'll be ready. But we'll see.
That's fine.
How things go. I'm not sure if we actually have an advocate for that either.
I can be the advocate for that because I dropped the other one.
Okay. All right. Great.
I'm hoping at me to have be an advocate for an issue for a while. So I'll sign up for that.
Okay. Let's see. We're running short on time here. We'll move on to initiatives. I think you guys were talking about ready to wear a lot during the prior meeting, so we won't cover that one again. But telemetry, we haven't gotten an update on that this week. Tim, do you have anything to report?
No, I'll just say that'll be my focus now that my other advocate issue's gone. So no developments.
Okay. I think that does it for the project update. Do you guys have anything else you guys would like to talk about today, and before we end the meeting and the broadcast at least?
I'd just like to make kind of an announcement and or take some quick feedback. Based on some conversations in the last meeting, I'm suggesting, and went ahead and posted a forum post with a prospective date, that we do a virtual user group on, dang it, where's the date? I went and changed the screen. Anyways, the first Tuesday of January, that is a lightning talk on Contrib modules. And the goal is basically to have people do short 5 to 10 minute presentations on Contrib modules that we can record individually and list on YouTube, and just generate a better library. And I suggested highlighting underappreciated modules, and I've already gotten some pushback on what that means. So I'll leave it up. I'll leave it up to every individual to decide what is underappreciated. Anything goes.
Okay.
So if anybody has feedback on the idea or the date, let me know. But otherwise, I want to schedule these, so I want people to like step forward and let me know in advance what module you're willing to do, so we don't have duplication.
Speaking of scheduling things, a week from today is Christmas Eve. It's a holiday for a lot of people, kind of similar to Thanksgiving, though in these times of pandemic and people being at home and not having other events to attend, we'll almost certainly be doing the backdrop meeting again next week, despite the holiday. So we will be having that a week from today at the usual time.
I have a question, like a quick one. The 1st of Jan falls on a Friday, and that's usually when we have the feature freeze. Are we going to extend it to the next Monday?
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah.
the 4th?
So the
Yeah.
actual feature freeze will be January 4th. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Nate mentioned that before, but that leaves just two weekly meetings, right, before next week, and then there'll be one more before feature freeze.
Correct. Yep. Okay, then. Anything else? Okay, well, let's end the broadcast for today. Thank you all for participating. Thank you everybody out there for your guys' work, and we